We are on.
We're on the air.
How do you feel? How was that?
Yeah, it was good.
Good.
Every time I do like a breath work, it reminds me of coming out of a DMT trip. So it's like
Yeah, well, it definitely can. Some of the
as
somatic guided breathwork sessions that I do, some of the hour-long journeys with music and stuff coming out of them, you do activate the DMT realm, and sometimes like you can be on the floor just looking up and coming to. It's just like this, like just portal, just sucking you back in, and yeah,
coming
it's
the body,
hey,
coming back to the body.
yeah, it's very. I've had a few profound experiences or moments through some of the breathwork journeys where what I believe I've tapped into sort of Christ consciousness, or that of the secret of what lies within us, and that being that we are the secret, we are God, and we are creation within. And I've had these well pure moments of being in sort of love, and sort of, and then you're coming to and coming back out, but it's like you just go through this energetic field where if you're sort of vulnerable, you can be open to like an attack of some sort. I don't know whether it's an entity attack. I don't know whether it's like it could be an attack of thoughts, or it can be a certain feeling that I've not
Yeah,
really dived. Go.
you open yourself up to all sorts of things when you're going through the astral plane. So if you're not spiritually aware or spiritually developed in being able to handle things like that, that's why newbies, when they first try psychedelics or DMT or try and have that awakening, it's like you have to have some type of foundation as to just be, it's yeah, it's very strange to be able to explain, really. But I've had some pretty dark psychic attacks, or whatever you want to call it, especially when I was doing all my psychedelic experiences. I wasn't really private about it. I was filming all my journeys on Instagram story, like blending the mushrooms and blending the lemons and everything. So
Oh yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't like they didn't know when I was going to be in that moment, because I was literally drinking the 10 gram, 11-gram teas on the Instagram story. So it opens you up to a lot of things, good and, well, positive and negative. But it's,
In the same trip.
yeah, but the overall experience, it's like if you have an intention and you know why you're doing it, it doesn't matter what negativity comes to you or tries to stop you from doing it. It's like life, the government and all these sorts of things are going to try and control your existence and everything,
Mm.
but that you can't be successful in this
Yeah.
reality just because you've got obstacles and difficulties. And obviously the system is designed to be difficult. It's not even doing your taxes and doing everything. They make it so there's so many layers of expertise needed to understand how everything works. That's why the whole matrix is compartmentalized. You look at doctors, there's a brain doctor, there's a leg doctor, there's a fucking heart doctor. It's all compartmentalized because there's so many different aspects to what's going on that the average person can't really comprehend it, because they just get overwhelmed. When you're spending 8 hours a day at work, eating shit food, watching Netflix, watching YouTube, Snapchat. Now we've got fucking TikTok and all this other shit. And people don't realize you have a certain amount of energy, like your
Mm.
bandwidth. So when you focus all your energy on shit that doesn't matter, when it comes to things that really matter, you're kind of lacking in energy, and then it becomes overwhelmed. And as soon as you're
Mm.
overwhelmed, you're fucked. You can't think, you can't comprehend, you can't do anything. So yeah, it's very intricate design, whatever you want to call the system we're living in. But once people really wake up to your soul and really realizing that your higher self or your God self or your soul, whatever you want to call it, Christ
Mm.
consciousness, it exists in our body. So we're having this human experience or the game experience, the game of life, whatever you want to call it. But we're not, when that's the good name, but we're not our body. So this
Mm.
is so many people get caught up in the looking in the mirror and thinking, all right, well, this is it, this is all I am. And I talked about it in another podcast I did, which hasn't been released yet, and it's just about when you look at most of the chemicals in our food and in our water and toothpaste and everything, it's all designed to disconnect us from our spiritual nature, like from our true self. So religion and all these other things, they work because if people can be indoctrinated into having a belief, you can't believe something and know something at the same time. So if people know, they don't believe, but if people don't know, they have to believe. So it's like,
I think religion's actually been put there to take it's just the distraction from putting a God up there, the distraction from ourselves, because we are actually the God within us. And
yeah, well, if every single person realized that they could do DMT, magic mushrooms, meditate, do some silent retreats, and a bit of earthing and fasting, and they could have intense spiritual experiences for themselves. It's like history. Every book that we read is someone's story, his story. So I think a lot of people don't really understand
in a
that aspect.
stand.
Yeah, or understand. I just don't think a lot of people really comprehend what's going on, and that's by design. Awakening back to your true self, your true nature that's why they call it the hero's journey, because it's a very, I wouldn't say traumatic, but it's a very intense emotional experience to realize, when you're waking up and you're thinking, what are we doing here? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? Where did I come from? It's like as soon as we're born, we're told this is who you are, this is your name, this is your gender, this is your religion, this is what sports team you go for, this is what country you go for. It's like so much of our conditioning is cultural conditioning through your family, whether it depends where you're born, what country, like nationality and things like that. But yeah, a lot of the programming that we get in the first 7 years creates our subconscious. So the first 7 years, they know that the brainwave is in a different state. So as soon as you're born, the first 7 years, you're programmable. Just like
That's why they sit all the kids in front of Disney, just to break that subconscious program and get in there really young.
yeah, well, that's the sad thing. Like my daughter watches a lot of Disney, so I try to limit it. But to be honest, my
You
my
can't.
partner or my baby mama, whatever you want to call her, she loves Disney, so she's watches a lot. Even though I know there's a lot of subliminal messaging, I try and balance that with a lot of positive content that we get her to watch. So it's not like that's the only thing that's impressing on her subconscious, because I am very conscious of that aspect, because the subliminal stuff, we were exposed to it when we were kids, but we didn't know. But we did. Obviously, it affected us. But that's the whole point of a subliminal message. You don't know you've received it, but you have. So it's
Yeah. I just tap in there. I just tap in there with since you spoke about the subliminal programming. I seen this Alex Jones clip probably within 12 months, and he shared like Terminator 2, where Sarah Connor, she's shaking up against the fence, and that's when that nuclear bomb, yeah, yeah, and like she's at the playground or something, and there's the nuclear bomb or atom bomb, and anyway, so Alex Jones played that part on his show, right? And man, I had this flashback of when like I was 10 or whatever age I was, and yeah, but it took me back then, and I sort of had this sort of like this part of my brain was like, holy shit, like they seeded that in my brain from Terminator 2 Judgment Day, because ever since that moment, that any time that there's been any sort of conflict, whether it's war, because of that image that I see,
Get back to that.
I go back to that and I think, oh, this is how I'm going to die. I'm going to die in like a, like a nuclear bomb. Like like after 9/11, I'm like, shit, World War III, that's it. And I go back to that image, go back to that image, go back to that image. But it wasn't until I actually seen it and I was like, wow, I didn't know that back then. And it really gave me like this aha moment where I'm like, I've been struggling with this for like 30 odd years or however long, whenever I seen, that show. And I was like, fuck, like they got me good.
Yeah, but the good thing is, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to realize you have those little subconscious memories stored and can get triggered for fear and certain subconscious programming. Once you become aware of it, that's how you're able to shift it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It doesn't matter how long it takes us because we're constantly reprogramming ourselves, But most people, if you don't take control of your own mind, the government, the media, all these corporations, they'll take care of that for you because thinking for yourself and actually well, for me, it was a pretty simple process because I had a head injury, which basically cleaned the slate, and I went through a pretty fucking traumatic experience with everything I went through. I didn't share a lot of it, but I had a lot of like memory loss and all kinds of crazy shit that was going on with me.
Things before the head injury, you don't really remember?
Nah, like it wasn't full like permanent like memory loss completely of everything. The good thing with my social media and Facebook and things like that, having so many photos and videos and having documented so much of your life, I was able to remember a lot of things. But I just went through. It was like a lot of the programming and the conditioning that I'd received from childhood. It was like it was gone. So, and it's kind of put me on this journey of kind of rediscovering, who the fuck am I? What am I doing here? It's like, whereas before that, you're really only focused on making money, looking good, all the superficial shit, like look good, make money, it's like, what else is there to life? You're not really looking into the spiritual aspect. You're not thinking about astral travel or other dimensions because we're so caught up here in this dimension, in the physical plane, trying to get material riches because we think the more stuff we got, the happier we can be, So it's like, to be honest, I think I was happy, It was like I was the guy in the Matrix that didn't want to be unplugged, but I didn't have a choice, My journey was, hey mate, you're getting unplugged, and so I went through everything I went through, and just on the healing journey, trying to heal myself, and after going to the doctors and neurologists and psychiatrists and shit like that, I realized long before COVID that the medical system and the whole charade of health, it's an illusion. They're not healing anybody. Chemo and all this shit is not designed to cure cancer. All these diseases and things have been cured long time ago, long time ago. But
that's why all of these elites, they're still alive at 100,
Yeah, well, but there's obviously a lot of other things going on with them, with blood infusions and things like that from younger people and things like that. There's a lot of darkness that goes on to preserve certain lives that are I don't call them elites by any means, but they're just certain people that have had vast resources for a long time, and they've been able to manipulate and coerce basically the entire planet to do whatever they want for material gain. So we're coming through a time in history now, which I realise that as people become more in tune with their spiritual nature and realise that we're not just existing here. So yeah, we're here, but we're here for a reason, and then we go somewhere else. So if you think you're only here and then when you die, that's it, people will do anything for money and stuff right now because they think when they die, that's it. So
that's why they tell you that's why they tell you you're on a ball in the middle of space. There's no life out there.
If you think when you die, that's it,
galaxy.
you'll literally do anything. And that's why a lot of celebrities do all these sacrifices, sacrifice their family members and their firstborn kids and things like that, because they think, oh, well, I'll get all these cars and all this shit that I want now. And nothing's going to have to worry about it later. But it doesn't really work like that. For people that are conscious of what they're doing and where they're going and why they're here, there's certain people that can't be bought. And I think that it's taken a long time for us to get to this point now where people don't have a price, whereas before everyone would be like, oh, my price is $1 million, my price is 10 million, mine's 100 million. Everybody has been able to be bought. And when you have a few families, or 13 families to be precise, controlling the entire financial system of the world, it's like these 13 families have been able to manipulate and control all world governments, the WEF, the UN, everything, So when you look at financials and how the banking system works, people think all these banks and everything have money. It's like, no, there's certain families that control the IMF, the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve. It's all privately owned. They're not owned by countries. They're owned by private families. So these families have funded every war. They've funded all the gender reassignment, all the LGBTQ, like all the stuff they're trying to distort reality and trying to destroy the nuclear family and trying to really fuck everything up. Everything that's happening is all by design. So even when you look at big companies now, like big corporations, if they want to get funding, so if you look at it, BlackRock and Vanguard, there's two investment companies that own basically majority shares in 98% of companies. So they send out like a prerequisite and they say, all right, if you want your funding this month, you have to put in certain people. Like you need a black person, you need an Asian person,
ESG.
Yeah, so they have certain
it's like when you go to Starbucks. Yeah, it's like when you go to Starbucks and there's always someone with purple hair and a shaved side, or you go down to Office Works and they're all wearing the rainbow tags, and it's like you go into JB Hi-Fi and they look like punk rockers.
That's the inclusion system that the whole corporate matrix operates on now. So, but all of that is all by design because if you look at the way that the world is going, like 10 years ago, you would never imagine that we'd be living in the world we're living in right now.
I know, it's wild.
Even for the deepest conspiracy theorists that were like right down the rabbit hole, you wouldn't believe that they would be able to have done what they've done because it's just slowly got people more distracted, lowered the male testosterone. And the thing is now, there's so many males on TRT, which for me, I've experimented a lot with steroids and TRT and things like that. And I thought it was a great revolution and a great thing for masculinity. But when you don't have any balls, like you don't have any testicles, that removes your courage, your drive, your inner masculine energy. Like if you go back in history, all the crazy people, like all the warriors, they'd be like, oh, big balls. Whereas now you've got all these massive guys, massive jack dudes with no ball sack. They literally have no testicles.
Yeah.
So when you look at it,
the complete opposite to you. I said the complete opposite to you then, but yeah. Anyway.
What did you say?
Oh no, I thought we're talking about two different things because some of those like carved sculptures they used to do them with small penises so that they didn't look barbaric, right? But when you were saying about ancient times, whatever, like I was just thinking, yeah, like probably the barbarians back then had fucking big hammers, but fucking today's world they got small nuts.
They're fucking rowing across continents to go and fucking siege the castles and fucking kill everyone. I think those guys had some cojones to be moving those boats like they were. I'm telling you. You go and get a few liberals on go and put them on a tinny and see if they can get from one side of the harbour to another. I don't know if they can.
Oh, they'll fucking have meltdowns, won't they?
They'll melt the boat. They'll just melt the boat.
Climate change deniers.
But yeah, this is the thing. It's like I don't label anyone anymore. I don't criticize anyone because I went through a point where I had this having an awakening or a spiritual awakening. It's in layers, It's like I don't judge anybody because I remember how asleep and how ignorant and how dumb I was. So knowing that you were at that point, even though you're not there anymore, you were there. So when you look at the spectrum It's like you can't judge someone that is where you were. It's like you have to learn to have a bit of empathy and compassion and understanding for them, and that's not easy. You know, that's the hard part I went through, because obviously the natural response when somebody is wearing 4 masks and telling you need 10 vaccines and you need to do this and you do that, it's like you want to tell them they're dumb cunts. You want to just grab them by the face and say, you're a fucking idiot. But you have to realize that these people are just scared, and it's because of the influence of the people they're listening to, the TV shows they listen to, what they watch, what they read. So their entire little bubble of existence that they live in has made them live in fear because of the influences that they've allowed to navigate their life. You know, so this is the thing with false idols. So many people idolize celebrities and actors and TV stars so much that they will do anything they say. They'll buy any products they tell them to buy. They'll buy any music they tell them to buy. And so when you have people that are conditioned to follow people that don't have their best interests in heart, those people are lost because they've given their thought process, they've given their attention and themselves to somebody else. You know, so they're not sovereign in that moment because they're not thinking for themselves.
Yeah, I probably realized over the last 2 years, maybe longer, but like really, truly, deeply believe that all of those false idols, man, they don't give a fuck about us. Right?
Well, they don't. But the thing is, a lot of them don't give a fuck about themselves either. It's like they've done a lot. Like when you understand, there's two real paths to success. You know, I went the path where I did it myself, and that's why I got banned. You know, because a lot of people usually get to choose two paths. They go the gay path or the sacrifice path, or the kid touching sort of shit, and it's very dark either way. So once you choose one of those two paths, you're subconsciously, you can have all the material riches you want. You're still always going to be thinking about that. It's always there. So you've already devalued yourself. You might look rich to people on social media and having all this stuff and have this illusion of being someone important, but deep down you know in yourself that it's all fake. And I think that's why a lot of celebrities, a lot of them have such big drug and alcohol problems, because they're trying to mask. They know that it's all an illusion, and they're idolized for being this fake person that doesn't exist. You know, because if everybody knew that all of these celebrities and all these movie stars and stuff were doing all this evil shit to become famous, nobody would want to follow anything they're saying. Nobody would want. So that's why the secrecy and all this stuff has really been so massive for so long, is because when you look at the whole world is a stage. And Freemasonry basically explains to everyone that the world is a stage, you know. So there's a lot of things that goes on in the world, and people are just completely disconnected to reality, you know. Like people watch a reality TV show and think that's reality. Every reality TV show is scripted just like anything else, you know. There's very little that is.
Yeah, I think in 2019, my mother got some tickets to be in the audience for, I think, Australia's Got Talent, and she called me up. She goes, "Oh, I got these 3 tickets," and I was like, "Yeah, you better be taking me, right?" Anyway, like I rolled on up there. This was 2019. This was so interesting enough. I also had a head injury early 2019, and that's what sort of led me to stop drinking, because my short-term side effects ended up becoming long-term side effects. But this was sort of within that window, and sort of some stuff was happening to me in 2019 where I was like, certain things are adding up, but sort of throw that in there. But I was in the audience, and I realized that there was people coming on the stage to perform, and some people were coming through, you know, like sending people home, or, "Oh yeah, you're coming next week," or whatever. And I realized that they started to fabricate this story for the people on, like, watching it at home. And there was this woman who had like issues with it, like a kidney or so. I don't know. She had some like hospital bills she needed to pay for, and she wanted to win so she could get the money, so she could get better. And they didn't let her through, but they got this little kid that like made these wedding dresses with chicken outfits or whatever, and it was just a stupid fucking performance. I was like, well, what's this? The kid's got nothing. This isn't a talent, right? But you see that they were trying to just get the people, the audience. So they started to create this thing, and I'm like, this is all a fucking lie. Like they create, and whenever like an act would come on, then they, obviously they'd make the crowd clap and yell and scream and do all this shit. And I was just like, oh wow, this is all pretend for the people at home on the TV. And it wasn't sort of until then, and I witnessed it firsthand, that I was like, this is all pretend. This isn't real. And then I finally, figured it all out from there. And I was like, wow, man, like this is all bullshit.
Yeah, well, I've known for a while now, but it's I think the first thing that ever really woke me up in a big way was watching 9/11 when I was a kid. I remember sitting there watching it.
How old were you? How old were you on that day?
Oh, I can't remember exactly how old I was. What was that? 2001 was it?
How old are you now?
So 2001. So
you don't have 30. To answer that if you want your privacy.
I'm 30.
No, if you tell me your age, I know how old I am. I'll be able to tell you how old you were.
34.
34, yeah, because I was like 18, 19. I think I was 18. And yeah, so if I was 18, 30, 34, what's that? Yeah, so you would have 12, 13, 12.
Yeah, probably about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, just sitting there watching that, and then this is how I first ever had my first ever impression of a truth talker and my connection with Trump, because I remember watching the live news, and I watched the whole building fall down, and I was like, what the fuck? And then you watch the second building fall down, and then they were interviewing all different people on there, and they had Trump on there.
Yeah.
And Trump comes on, and he's like, they must have used explosives or bombs or something to bring those towers down. He's like, because the structures of the building, the frames, the steel frames on the outside of the building. So they're super, super strong on the outside, because a lot of the newer buildings, all the frame structure was internal. And then it's just all glass and shit around the outsides. But the way that those towers were built, and the way that he described it, I was like, that sounds way more believable than what they were trying to like push. And then he said that once, and then boom, they kicked him off. They never brought him back on. And I'll watch for days and days and days, and they had all these other people, all these different theories, and I was like, where the fuck's the one dude that made sense? He's gone, and now they've got all these other experts that just kind of trying to make it up. So, and I didn't realize how intense that memory was saved until probably a few years ago now, maybe 2019, 2018 or something. There was a lot of things started to come up, because obviously the 9/11 debunking stuff, and a lot of people started dying and stuff that were trying to expose that. And if you look at any major cover-up in history and things like that, it's like a lot of people that are trying to investigate the truth or share the truth or uncover it, when all these people that are saying a certain topic and then they all die, it's like, for me, that became subjects that I would want to research. It's like, all right, if 10 people died talking about this subject, I want to know about that. So for me, I've always been drawn to the things that you're not supposed to know, or you shouldn't know that, or it's scary to know that. I've always had like an internal drive to be like, all right, that's obviously something that is, it's a sensitive topic, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be shared. There's obviously a lot of resistance to it being shared, but that's because when you go against the official narrative that the mainstream tries to portray, now we know that before Trump, nobody knew that all the news was fake. You keep going on their fake news, and people would just be like, oh, what an idiot. Now, 4 years later, people are like, all the
fake news.
It's fake.
CNN's fake news.
they and now everybody knows that, and so
Yeah.
it's been a good journey to watch. Really, like I don't know what to really describe the last few years, like how you would label it, but for me, I was at a point in 2020 where my business had stopped for a while. I was couldn't travel, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything, and I'd already been down a lot of rabbit holes over the years, but I just really went deeper. It was the first time I wasn't trying to make money. I wasn't trying to learn any new skills for the business. I wasn't trying to learn how to make videos go viral. I was just like, all right, what am I going to use my energy to do right now? And I just started researching, started watching heaps of videos, reading heaps of articles, and I read probably more in early 2020 than I have in years. So it really started to connect dots that I didn't really know needed to be connected with, like things that I'd watched and conversations I've had with people, because I've traveled all over the world. I've had some pretty intense conversations with a lot of different nationalities in different countries talking about certain topics that, for me, like if I watch a video which is controversial and a theory, I won't even say the conspiracy word anymore, because it's just a derogatory term they use to try and make somebody that has a credible potential theory. It's just, how do we, make his theory not plausible? We'll just add that word, try and, because the CIA created that word to try and discredit anyone that went against their narratives, because as we know now with Mockingbird and certain projects that have been going on for a long time, all the three-letter agencies have had basically total control of all media outlets around the world. And that's why certain topics don't get any airtime. And like you said, when you're watching that show, they'll get something there's no story to it, absolutely nonsense news, and they'll create this huge backstory and try and get everyone emotionally connected when it's just shit. And for me, I realised that the news and everything, like the whole medical system, like when I seen all these expert doctors coming out saying all this stuff about COVID, I realised after having all my experiences with talking to doctors and stuff that these people got no idea what they're talking about. They do whatever they're told to do by whoever funds their projects, So
can't even believe they put like Kerry Chant. Like Kerry Chant has to be one of the. I don't want to pick her apart from looks, but like if that was Kerry Chant was a New South Wales health minister, but man, like she, you ain't taking health advice from that woman. Wow, she was terrible, man. Like I'm like, what the fuck? You put her on here and I'm like, nah, man. She's like some twisted second generation Nazi eugenics.
Well, when you look at a lot of the world's health ministers,
I know Denmark and all that, Belgium,
they're either
woman in Belgium,
or they're super obese. So that's kind of laughing in your face. It's like, here is the fattest, ugliest person we've got. We're going to put them in charge of health. If you walked into a gym, would you want to go and get PT sessions or nutrition advice from her? Why would you take advice from someone that you don't want to? And this is the thing. The problem is with the world is things have just been so politically correct. You're not allowed to say anything mean. You're not allowed to say anything. It's like, I'm not going to take health advice from someone that doesn't look fucking healthy. That's just it. If they don't look like they know what they're talking about, I'm not going to listen to them. And for me, listening to all these people like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, I'm like, it was just a total nonsense for me. And from the beginning, I was just like, this is all bullshit, and I'm not going along with any of it. And I was very, very vocal, because I realised when you read certain documents that were released long before COVID, lockstep was one of them. So I don't know if you're familiar with it was a, I don't know if it was created by the Rockefeller Foundation, but it was a dossier. It was called Lockstep, and it basically showed how they would lock down all the countries one by one, and how we would get into this lockdown system that we were in. And I read it, and I knew about this.
What year was that? Like, what year
Oh,
was that document?
I think maybe 2011, or
Yeah,
it's old. Alex Jones was all over it. I've heard a lot of people.
because
But
I believed, I started to think that the, you know, like the lockdown was just the deploy of the, or the testing phase of the, like obviously they would have had the in Operation Lockstep, but the climate lockdown.
yeah,
Like,
look,
because
but
I,
if you look at what happened in the beginning of the lockdowns, what do you know what happened in the first stage of lockdowns?
well, let me
All the
just
all the 5G systems got upgraded all through the cities.
yes,
The
but
the amount of
but
5G towers that went up during the lockdowns was insane because
uh,
essential workers were allowed to work. Yeah,
hmm.
you know how many electricians and sparkies and people were essential during those lockdowns to be installing that?
All of them.
Yeah, everyone was essential, and a lot of bigger companies had to sign NDAs and certain things because they made it in the contract so that because you're getting work when other people aren't allowed to work, you have to keep it quiet, you know. But
Mm.
this is the thing that most people don't realize: there's so much goes on in the world, but NDAs and non-disclosure agreements, for people that don't know what that means, these are common practice for a lot of people, a lot of companies, and this is how so much goes on that doesn't get shared because once people sign a contract that they're not going to say anything,
Mm.
they can't. So for me, knowing that all this infrastructure upgrade and everything was going on when it was supposed to be, it was really just the first steps of what we now know that they admitted was the New World Order. So when you look at Agenda 2030, I wondered how it was all going to play out and how it was going to get to, because I've been to China twice. So I've had first-hand experience with how a social credit communist government works. You know, like
Yeah.
I've been there. I've, I've literally walked through the
What's it
streets. I've
like?
had
What's it like there? What's it like there?
well, I didn't go to the major cities. I only went to like the factory towns and things like that. So I was in Shenzhen and Guangdong and a few places in there. But it's just the way that when you talk to people, like they won't say anything bad about the government
Mm.
or anything. And it's like for me when I talk to people, whether their mouth says something, their eyes always reveal something that they're not willing to say. You know, so when you ask a question that they don't want to answer, that automatically their response is, "Oh yeah, everything's good, government's good," but their eyes is like fear. You know, so because everything in the system, we're living in the system now where since the 5G upgrade, it's called IoT, Internet of Things. So everyone's microwave, well, not microwave, their fridge, their washing machine, everything now, all these new appliances are all hooked up to a smart grid. So everywhere you go, your biometrics, your data, your voice, everything is tracked. So it all gets put into this grid. And so everything you say, everything you do, everywhere you go, all these new cameras and everything, it creates a smart profile of you. And when you look at the World Economic Forum and things like that, they've been talking about creating a carbon footprint for each citizen. So it'll be like, oh, you've had too many steaks this week. Oh, you've farted too many times. You've you've bought too many things from the shops. You're not allowed to buy any more of that. So they want to implement this system so that they get to decide how much you can consume, what you can consume, and that's the whole reason for the push towards digital currency. Because if everything is digital, they can control what you can actually buy with it. If you've got cash in your hand, you can go and buy whatever you want with anyone that will take your cash. You know, obviously some companies and some places have said, oh, they're going cashless, but as people become more conscious to what the system, what is happening in the system, you know, the reason why COVID and everything happened and all the lockdowns is because everybody complied. Everybody thought, oh, this is for our health, this is for our safety. Oh, the government wants to save us. Like, when you realize that's all an illusion and you were fucking lied to and manipulated and I won't call you an idiot, but when you realize and look at yourself in the mirror and say, "Oh, I'm an idiot," you know,
It's
that's
crazy, man.
the moment. Go.
Oh yeah, like I'm gonna just like chime in and say two things here. But the first thing was like when you actually have that conversation. Like I have this saying that it's the family Christmas dinner conversation starter, right? Like it's like tell me why did you put that in your body? Why did you put that in your body? Why did you put that in your body? Does anyone not find it strange that you put something in your body to go to a cafe? You put something in your body to go to the gym. You put something in the body so you could go to Thailand to travel. You put something in your body that had nothing to do with the reason why you're meant to put that in your body. I'm saying it like this because obviously, if this goes on YouTube, they can flag me for for using certain words. But the shot, right? So, you say that to some people, and they're like, and they would just snowball into saying what they're programmed to say, which will be like, oh yeah, but I took it because of to protect my nan, or I took it. Oh well, I was forced to do it because of work. And it's like now it's like people are starting to say, oh yeah, no, I was forced to do it and I had no choice and all these things. And it's just like, but can you not see that's what they done to you? And it's like there is no power power to the people for people to actually realize that that's actually what fucking happened, and they just still continue on as normal and as if it's like whatever. And it's like,
virtue,
well then what about next?
virtue signaling. Nobody wants to admit they were wrong. It's like
Right.
everybody's like, "Oh, I was forced to," but nobody wants to admit that because when you look at how dark the media try to turn people, it's like if you're not vaxxed, you're not welcome. Do you see in a lot of these celebrity rants and all this shit that were going on saying that we were the enemy and we were causing all these problems and the way,
Right-wing neo-Nazi extremists, we'll call it.
they tried. Well, that's going to get you fucking flagged for sure, but that's what they were trying to say. Like when you look at how crazy they went to attack anyone, regardless of your credibility, regardless of your status, regardless of your medical credentials, if you dared to have an opinion that went against the mainstream narrative, you would be smashed. The shit that I went through is like it's unbelievable. I don't know how to describe 2020 that year for me, but
Do you mean that like on a personal level or just like
on a personal level, spiritual level,
audience level?
On a which?
Like I just mean like audience, because obviously you're putting it online. Like
I always had a massive social media following, but mostly it was obviously for my looks and the way that I was training and certain things, my lifestyle. And obviously in the beginning of Instagram, I realized that the better you looked, the more viral your photos would go. So I would train insane. Like I would fucking push myself to the absolute limit to look the best that I could. And because I had a lot of old school bodybuilder friends that were able to, teach me how to have that bodybuilder mentality where you can actually grow muscle, because the average person that goes to the gym can't build muscle because to build that muscle requires a pain tolerance to tearing your muscle. If you want to build your muscle, you have to tear it, build it, tear it, build it. There's a process, and especially training your legs and certain body parts, it's extremely painful. So I'd push myself just to extremes to look good, but I realized that my whole existence, like my purpose, is like, what am I doing here? Am I just supposed to be here to look good? It's like I've got this big audience, I've got this big platform. I was like, instead of me just posting what people want to see, I was like, maybe I should use my platform to talk about stuff that I'm concerned about, talk about things that other people won't talk about, share my views, my perspective, because that's the whole thing about social media was for me. It was like you're supposed to be able
to 375,000. How many?
Yeah,
you
well,
get
the
up to?
biggest it got to in 2017 was had 420 in 2017. So
So you
20
were so you got like a lot of your following like way before 2020 then.
way before. So my following actually went down from 2017 to 2020. My following actually went down, but
Mm.
yeah. If I was still on the same growth trajectory as I was in 2017, I would have been well over 1 million followers by 2020, probably 2 million. Because I was growing rapidly. Like I had one of the fastest growing Instagrams in Australia before my head injury, and maybe in the world. Like it was growing quick. But so 2016, I was at about 170,000, and then by December 2017, I was at 420. So I doubled to tripled my following in 12 months. So if you use that math, it was on an exponential growth anyway. But so 2018, after I had the head injury in December 2017, I started posting about organic food and healing and overcoming trauma and shit. Like I went through a fucking gnarly experience. Like a lot of people don't really understand how fragile your brain is, and like doesn't matter how strong you think you are, if something happens to your brain, it's like it. It's a complete factory reset. Like it
Did
can
you
just.
have to did you have to get your skull cut open or
Nah,
anything
see,
to
I didn't.
relieve
I
it?
didn't have any bleeding on the brain, so I didn't have. They did the MRIs and CAT scans and stuff like that. There was no bleeding on the brain. They stitched me up and let me go, and just said, "Well, you'll be all right." And I was taking endones and Valiums and all sorts of shit, and it wasn't until I got my stitches out and started to try and stop taking the painkillers that I realised like I'm not all right. Like I'm fucked, and
In what
trying
way?
to.
Like pain fucked or
Oh, but not even pain. It's like trying to communicate with people, and because I watched my grandfather. He had a brain surgery, he had brain cancer, and he had a tumor. And after his brain surgery and stuff like that, like I remember having conversations with him, and he was trying to speak to me, but he was just getting real frustrated, and I was having similar moments like that, trying to talk to people, and I was thinking, how the fuck am I like this? Like I'm in my 20s and I'm fucked. I'm sitting here like a 90-year-old man, fucking with just had a brain surgery, and it was really, I don't know whether I was triggered by the experience that I had with my grandfather or not, but it really just sent me down a dark path, and I wanted to kill myself. I nearly did multiple times, and I think overcoming that was the biggest kind of shift for me because I realised, I could just kill myself right now and it'd be over. But then it's like, is it really over? It's like you can't. Sometimes you got to realize you can't run away from something. It's like everything happens for a reason. So it's like, all right. At the time, you're not going to see, oh, this is happening for me to learn this, or I've got to go through this because of this. But when you look back on your life in hindsight and look at a lot of the major things that have happened to us, whether we viewed it as positive or negative at the time, you always realize there's a silver lining and there's an opportunity in every situation for you to overcome it. Or it's like I realized that if when I was going to the psychiatrist and things like that, I was sitting next to veterans and stuff, watching them getting all their PTSD meds and antipsychotics and shit, and I was sitting there looking at them, looking in their eyes, and I'm like, these guys are fucked up and they're not getting the help they need. They're just getting dosed up, which eventually, if they miss their dose or they don't have the right dose, or they just get so fucked up that they just kill themselves because they can't make peace with what they've been through. They can't forgive the other people or forgive themselves, which is a massive part of healing that I've learned for myself. So there's a whole aspect that I realize I'm like, hang on, I'm going through this because I need to be able to get through this so that I can help other people. And for me, then it became more of it's not just about you, It's like if I can overcome this, I can share my experience and my knowledge and I wouldn't really call it a victory, but I'd be able to share my experience, with other people that need it, because I realised a lot of the doctors, neurologists, and psychiatrists and stuff, they try their best to understand head injuries and certain things, but unless you've had one yourself, because you can't see it, you could look at someone and could look physically perfect, and mentally they got a lot of fucked up shit going on, and until you go through something like that yourself, you can't relate. Because people were looking at me and like, oh, look at how fit this guy is. He's got abs, he's shredded, he's nothing wrong with him. But there's so much more to it, and I realised that I just had to keep going. And like I said, I had a good support network around me, friends and family. Whereas without them, I wouldn't be here. They kind of kept me grounded. And then looking back through my old social media and photos and videos and people telling me stories of like what we used to do is like that really kind of brought me back to myself. And it's like remembering, you know what, like we're going through shit right now, but it's not the end of the road. So I'm still here. I'm lucky that I'm still here, and I feel like I've learned a lot of valuable life lessons over the last few years. And yeah, if you're out there and you've almost given up, there's always a way. So you just got to find a way to keep going. And
I heard a guy speak the other day about suicide, and he said that just get through today.
Yeah, and
That's
then
it.
keep
Just get through. Just get through today. If you're feeling like that, like now, like just get through today, and then see how you feel. Yeah, man, it's definitely no help.
like I
Really,
thought I was at the peak of my life. I had the Instagram, had the famous girlfriend, I had the house, had the shop. I had doing all the fitness expos. I was going viral. I had everything that I thought that I wanted, and then it's just like one thing can happen and your whole world's turned upside down. But it's like without that adversity and without those challenges, it's like you can't become a person of character without those challenges. It's like, all right, you had it, now you've lost it, now you're going to have to get it back again. So for me, it was like the amount of hours that I spent watching how to build, like how to build an Instagram, how to fucking build a following, how to take photos, how to make videos go viral. I spent thousands of hours learning how to do what I did. People look at me and say, "Oh, you got lucky, you got famous early on in Instagram." But I was like, "Yeah, but why? Why did I become famous? Why was I one of the fastest growing fitness models in Australia when, I'm not 6 foot tall. I'm not the average look. I'm covered in tattoos, and I realised early on that I wasn't the carbon copy person that they were looking for from modeling companies. So I was like, all right, I'm not what they're looking for, but that doesn't mean that I can't create my own, my own
what was
brand.
it?
And I
What was it
realized,
you think that it all like just started blowing up? Was it like a hashtag thing? What was it, like algorithm? Was
nah,
it?
well, I really started it just as a hobby in the beginning, and but I remember I was sitting at work one day. I was doing 12-hour shifts, working at Mount Piper Power Station. And I was just every chance I got, I was just looking at my phone, looking at Instagram, and I was like, I'm fucking addicted to Instagram. And I was like, every chance I get, I'm on the toilet or I'm at Smoko, like I'm always looking at it. And I was like, this is fully taken all my attention. And I was like, and I sat there and kind of thought to myself, I'm like, this is not healthy. Like you're constantly checking this. And I was like, and then I thought to myself, like, all right, if all my attention is going to Instagram, I'm like, that's not a good thing for my career, but so maybe I can make Instagram my career. So I had like this inner thought process with myself where I thought, you know what, if I can
What year
find a
was
way,
this?
this probably would have been 2014, maybe
What year
2013,
did
2014.
what year did RigFit start?
I registered that December 2014.
Okay. Yep.
So I already had the thought process probably from around, I think 2012 was the first time I went to Europe. So I did a 10-week trip through Europe. And that opened my eyes to the world stage of like what's out there. A lot of people that stay in one country, in one suburb, and good for you, but there's a whole world out there that everywhere you go, every new experience, every new place, every new person you talk to, it changes your perception of reality. And so for me, after that, I was like, it just changed my whole view on a lot of things. And so I'd seen people that were multimillionaires. I'd seen people that had like hundreds of millions of dollars and like how they live. And I was like, all right. And I was sitting at work one day and I was really, because I used to think, I'm making really good money as a fitter. If you work, you're doing big hours, but you get $3,000 to $4,000 a week after tax and doing shutdowns. So for the average person, that was massive money. There wasn't many people earning that much money, but you're trading your whole life for it, and then you don't get much free time. And the free time that you do get, it's like you're spending your money and then you're going back to work. So I was looking at social media and I thought, you know what, maybe I can earn money out of this. And so I started to Google modern day millionaires and things, and they said develop an app or an online store, because if you want to be a modern day millionaire, you have to earn money in your sleep. And I'm like, all right, that makes sense. So for me, even if I was getting $100 an hour, you could only earn $1,200 a day. If you're getting $50 an hour, you're only earning $600 a day. So when you put that into perspective about how much can you earn, when you're limited by how many hours you can work, whether you're getting more money than everyone around you is doesn't matter or not. Because if your potential is that you could earn more than everyone it doesn't, because it's the thing, people compare themselves to everyone around them. They say, I earn more money than my friends, so they feel good. But it's like, all right, you're earning more than your friends, but maybe you're meant to earn 100 times more than you're earning right now, because you're meant to earn to your potential. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Is like, instead of asking yourself, all right, yeah, I'm doing better than everyone else around me, ask yourself, what is my potential? What is the best that I can potentially reach? And when you look around the world and you see people earn $1 million a month or $1 million a week, it's like, are these people any more intelligent or any more sophisticated than you are? Because, success leaves clues. So if somebody has done it before, you can do it. And it's like understanding that wherever you're setting your goals and your attention, that's what you're going to get. So for me, I was focused on working on the tools, doing shutdowns, working, and then I thought, I'm hooked on social media. There's millionaires making money online, and I just started to develop a system on how to grow a following. And I realized just from every photo that I took, like some with my dogs, some with my friends, some traveling, like I created this lifestyle where it wasn't just all fitness or all tattoos. It was just a little bit of everything, but that kind of garnered a big audience, So I realized how to get my photos early on the explore page. And because my photos started to get really intense engagement, like early on, the old algorithm was if you would get lots of likes and comments early on, it would get pushed straight to the explore page because it was a trending, post. So I learned how to do that early on. I obviously had a few litters of I was breeding blue staffies, so I had a few litters of blue staffies, and I always had pups and stuff around, and that was a big boost to the algorithm, like taking photos with little staffy puppies with your whole back tattooed, and I had the Harley, I had the V-Rod early on, and the Range Rover. So it was the lifestyle, but also, the content. So whereas now everyone is trying to flex on Instagram and trying to do things, and back then, early on, people were too shy to post on Instagram. People were too shy to talk on the camera. It took me a long time to build the self-confidence for me to be able to do it. I didn't just, when I was in school, I wasn't like good at public speaking or anything like that. It was more for me understanding that this is a new career opportunity and that the whole world is going into a digital social, whatever you want to call this world we're living in now, because the whole world's changing. Whatever world we were living in 50 years ago doesn't exist. And so that's why I was looking. I was thinking, all right, that's what everyone was doing back then. But now the world is shifting now, like with Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook. Because I remember when MySpace was the big thing, and
Tom.
then MySpace was gone. People went to Facebook. Then Snapchat came out, but then Instagram. It took me a long time to get on there, but I realized there was something different about Instagram. It really took on a whole I don't know, whole vibe of itself, like it wasn't like any other social media. People
Mm.
idolized Instagram. Like I realized when I used to go out years ago when I was younger, when you'd go out and like you'd be around all these supermodel chicks, like real tall models, they would have when you sit there and talk to them, they would have all these things that they look for in a perfect man. They'd be like 6 foot tall, dark, handsome, all this shit. And I was like, first things out, I'm like, boom, I'm not 6 foot tall. So I'm like, all right. But then after I started going viral on social media, nobody gave a fuck how tall you are. Oh, you've got hundreds of thousands of followers. Can I take a photo with you? Oh, so it really just shifted the whole world. I was like, holy shit. I was like, this is powerful, eh?
Mm.
Like, you'd be talking to girls and they'd see how many followers you got. They'd be like, oh my God. And then they'll literally throw themselves on you or at you, send in your photos and shit just because you've got followers. And I was like, this has like real world value being well known. So whereas before that, when I was younger, I didn't want anyone to know me or anything about me. I'd post a little bit here and there, but I wasn't sharing, your whole life. But realizing how much potential there was, I just went all in and just started training and just made social media the number one goal for my life. And
Do you have any idea about the law of attraction, law of vibration
yeah,
back
well, I
then?
knew of the secret and the little things of it, but not. I was living it, but I wasn't 100% aware of the principles. Since I've been a little kid, I've just always knew that I was going to be rich and I was going to have the lifestyle that I wanted. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I've always, since I've been a kid, even when my mum had to like file for bankruptcy and we went through a lot of crazy shit. We went from being like real well off to then losing everything and then starting again. So no matter what, for me, I've always had that resilience in my character where it's like I can never be broke. You could take everything off me and take all my designer stuff and everything, and I'm still not broke. So broke for me is a mentality. If you're rich in your mind, regardless whether you have 5 years without any material possessions, on that 6th year you could become the biggest, richest thing on the planet, and that is just the power of your mind. It's like for me, people say to me, "Oh, you've fallen off. You've lost all your stuff," and I went through a real Buddhist approach in the early phases of my awakening where I just didn't care about possessions. For me, not having stuff didn't make me any less of a person. It's like being happy with yourself and who you are is so much more important than having nice things is good as well, but it's about having that balance.
It's too much for me. There's too much static and bullshit when you're around a lot of stuff. When you got a lot of stuff, it seems like you're just drawn into this static of clutter of like either you need more space, but it's like just get all it's like all of this mess. But then as soon as you just sort of like go light and you got nothing of you and you're just like whatever, you leave the city or it's just like, oh wow, like this is me, and it's like all of this materialistic stuff all has its own energy attached to it and all of it's shit where it's like this stuff's really weighing me down as a person, right? And it's like get me away from it. So the less
Yeah.
stuff, man,
And
the
I
more
think in the
freer we
beginning,
are.
with the business side, like going from being working on the tools to starting a business, I realized from watching a lot of my friends that had businesses that once you had a business with an ABN, you could basically get any car loans and stuff you wanted. So you could get the Range Rovers and the Merc
Ooh.
stuff. So whereas when you're on wages, you couldn't access these vehicles because you were like capped on how much you could borrow. But as an ABN holder and as a business owner, there was more opportunities for you to have all these things right now. And it's so for me, yeah, it it was good that it opened me up to the world and like what was potential with having a business and things like that. But you also get weighed down by all the debt and stuff, like when you're leasing cars and you're leasing shops and you all these things. So on social media, you have this look that everything's all good, you know, I've got all this stuff, but then you also have the stress of the lifestyle as well. So I think that's where a lot of people realize that it's having your own business. It's not easy, you know. It's like people think it's all glitz and glamour and it's all good, but that's why for me, the mental resilience it took me to build that business, to get it to where it was, and then to have all that shit that I had to go through, like to make a brand go viral and to make it popular and well known, that's almost impossible. It's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult. And a lot of people don't realize, they say, oh, well, you spent too much money, you did this and that. Sure, I made a lot of mistakes, but to do what I did in such a short time, it was phenomenal. You know, it's like I really am proud of what I did. And, you know, obviously I've had a few setbacks and I've had to climb back out of the fire and rebuild myself. But this is the thing, is like you look at most billionaires have all been bankrupt.
Mm.
So when you look at that statistic, it's like rebuilding yourself like the phoenix. I've got the phoenix tattooed on the back of my head. For me, that after that moment and everything I went through, I'm like, this is my rebirth. It's like whatever I'm going through, it's just a part of my journey. You know, I'm just gonna take everything that I'm going through and just learn from it and just rebuild. And this is the thing: people think when you fail that's it, you're fucked. It's for me, fail is only the first attempt in learning. And it's
Mm.
like you look at a baby when it first starts crawling. You know, you got a son when he's first learning how to walk. It's like first few times they fall over, you know, and they fall over and they fall over. And what do? We give them encouragement. We clap them
Mm.
on. You know,
Mm.
as you turn into an adult and you fall over and you make mistakes and you fuck up, what does everyone say instead? Instead of the
Mm.
encouragement and the claps, you got your family saying, "Oh, you're a shit cunt. You're useless. You're a
Mm.
fuckwit. You shouldn't have done that. Told you not to do this." The whole world goes from this applause and this positivity to help you get where you know you can be, which is learning. And then it just becomes this destructive vortex of just criticism and nagging and abusing, and it's really fucked up, you know, because that's why people stop attempting to do anything, because they fail and then they get all this negativity and all these toxic emotions. And obviously it depends what type of business or what type of venture you're doing. You obviously lose money as well, so a lot of people have this emotional attachment to money. But
Mm.
for me, money's a fun token. It's like you spend it, the more fun tokens you've got, the more stuff you can do, the more people you can help. But you shouldn't rely on money to make you feel like you're of value, you know. People.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting when you were saying like earlier how much money you were making like back then, you know, like 3 grand a week. I remember I had a friend who had no life and, you know, like public holidays he'd work, Christmas Day he'd work, he'd work all of the holidays. Oh yeah, but I'm on 65 an hour. I'm on 60 for, you know, and I was just like, man, you're fucking doing 70 hours a week for like this shit money. It's like, man, this guy had no life, right? But for some people, like, unless you're not, you know, working on the roads or shift work or, you know, making 65, $70 an hour, or you don't have that $1 million mortgage, or you don't have that Range Rover, right? It's like for some people, that's their idea of success, right? And it's like you go to a barbecue and you just, oh, yep, yeah, I'm in 1.5 million. Oh, I've got a $1.5 million home, but I'm in debt for it and stuff. And people just can't break free of that, right? And it weighs them down. And yeah, like that to me, yeah, that lifestyle's a big no-no. But I was going to say this, that I've got a business myself, which my first sort of opened up a sole trader account in 2008, and sort of didn't really go that far with it. You know, 2010, I sort of went back to, you know, just working on wages to say. But then I opened up another account, another company in 2018, and I'm sort of thinking about going into opening up another business, right? But the one that I'm in now, like it's not in a point where I have to shut it down, but I'm actually quite happy to shut it down, right? And if you were to say, oh, that's failure, or it wasn't successful, or it's not going for another 10 years, like good, because like you said yourself, like all the billionaires that are bankrupt, like you listen to any successful person and they'll tell you that it was actually the third company that got them their success. It wasn't the second one, and it wasn't their first one, and it took them the first and the second for them to realize what they needed to do for the third. And just that external judgment towards other people. Like there are so many people out there that just want to see your failure, and they don't want to celebrate your wins. I've noticed that a lot, and it seems to be growing with more and more people. Not necessarily the ones closest to you, but even the ones you think are cheerleading for you, right?
I think a lot of the negativity as well is it comes from people that see you doing things that they have sort of given up on themselves, so they try to be more critical on your life and try and control you, because a lot of people you look at, their programming is very negative, and it's negative towards themselves as well. So somebody that is very negative and critical of themselves, they can only be that of other people. If you're very loving and compassionate and supportive of yourself, you can share that to other people. But until you have those things for yourself, you can't share that with anybody else. And that's the thing that I learned over my journey is like, I used to love that other people loved me, but I'm not sure that I ever loved myself. And nobody ever taught me how to love myself. And it wasn't until I had to go through everything that I went through, and I was like, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to forgive everything that I've gone through, forgive myself for everything that I've done, forgive everyone else that's hurt me, and just make peace with the past, love myself now, and just move forward. And for me, that was the most enlightening breakthrough. Without take psychedelics out of the equation, forgiveness and the law of grace. People talk about the law of attraction and certain things like that. The law of grace and transcending karma and forgiving yourself and doing a bit of dharma work. And it's like, you know what? Regardless of what you've done in the past, you can change and be a better influence for the future. And once you make that shift, you're not the same person you were. And so as you grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you're able to share that new version of yourself. Because for me, years ago when I was younger, I was very negative of other people. Like you'd be talking to some of your best mates and you'd be calling them, you fat cunt, you piece of shit. You'd be just thinking that you're talking to them like they're your mate because you're smiling while you're saying it. But when you think about what you're actually saying, you're not speaking to them nice at all. Now, when I hear people say all this shit, I was like, it just sounds so toxic to me. I'm like, I don't want to be around people that speak
you can
like
hear
that.
the vibe. You can feel when I'm on the phone to someone and they're swearing and they're saying the F word and stuff, man. I like you can feel that vibration that's attached to those words, and you're like, I don't talk to people that speak like that.
Yeah.
You hang up the phone.
My daughter in the background crying, like an idiot. So. Anyway.
You how you doing for time?
Good. Probably wrap it up in probably 15, 20 minutes. We'll just do an hour and a half for now, but
okay, that's fine.
We might go a little bit longer. We'll see how we go. But
yeah, I was gonna. I'm very interested. Like, I really feel like you got some fucking kahunas to take 11.11 grams of mushrooms. I mean,
12,
I just
12.12 was the biggest, but 11.11 was.
What were you thinking?
Well, this is the thing. So for me, when I first started reading a lot of the Terence McKenna, I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
He was doing like 13 grams, wasn't he?
Nah, he says the hero dose is five
Yep.
dried grams, and that's the hero dose. I haven't heard of him doing any more over 8. I think it was like one of his biggest ones. But even in saying that, 5 is a massive amount. But for me, when I realised the healing aspect of the physical body is only a certain aspect of healing. So what a lot of people don't realise is your DNA when you're born. So you inherit your DNA from your mum and dad, yeah. So we inherit not only their genetics, but we inherit ancestral trauma.
Yeah.
So your entire bloodline, their trauma, their memories, their fears, their emotions, all of that is in your DNA, my DNA, our DNA. So we inherit not only our skin, our eyes, our hair, like our genetic traits, but we inherit that trauma. So for me, realizing, all right, I'm healing this physical trauma from my life, so a lot of people, if they've had a natural birth, they're traumatized from, getting caught in the womb or getting pulled out with the fucking pliers, or I don't know what they call
Forceps.
the forceps. Yeah, like some people have been pulled out by the head, so that's like their first memory of arriving here. So going through all that, it's like we have trauma from our life, but then we also inherit our ancestral trauma. So the more that I was reading up on it and realizing, I was like, all right, I did a few of the hero doses, which I had some really positive breakthroughs, and the 5 gram doses for me were life changing. Like just the way that I was thinking, my mental clarity, overcoming just a lot of the toxic shit that I was going through on the healing journey. And then I started to go deeper. I went like 7 grams, 8 grams, and then I started to really tap into your ancestors. Like I didn't really know too much of my bloodline. I knew a bit of my grandfather's. Like my grandfather, that family, the States, they're from the First Fleet. So my grandfather's family were obviously the first settlers here. I don't know whether we were convicts or whether we were free settlers. I haven't gone that far into that aspect, but I know we're from the First Fleet. And then on my grandmother's side, she's English, but then Indigenous as well. So one of her, I don't know if it's her grandfather or a great grandfather, he was full Aboriginal, but they used to say that he was black English, because I didn't realise that back in the day they had the apartheid, where if you were Aboriginal, you couldn't go into the pubs, you couldn't go into the swimming pool, So people used to pretend that they weren't, so that they could go into certain places. So there's a whole aspect of my like bloodline that I kind of didn't know about, and I had to figure things out myself, which is why I had so much internal conflict. And then when I realized that I had all this ancestral trauma, I was doing a bit more reading, and I realized it had to go deeper. So that's when I thought, all right, well, if a hero dose is 5 grams, what happens if I take 10? So that was the first one I did. I did 10, and then I did 11, 11, and then the 12, 12. And every time I went deeper, it was a deeper level of deprogramming. So much of what we're taught and so much of what we're programmed to believe of who we are and where we come from, and a lot of this programming has been going on for centuries. And when you realize that your entire bloodline has been, I don't even know how to describe it. It's been through a lot, and you got to make peace with all the betrayal, all the trauma, all the death, all the, like, just by doing some of the healing ceremonies, it's like you reconnect with a moment in time, like you're there, you're experiencing what they're going through, and it was really intense for me, and that's what really gave me after I was doing the bigger doses, that's what gave me just that internal fire, where I was just like, you know what, I don't give a fuck if I get deleted anymore. I'm like, this is bigger than my page. What's happening in the world is like, we're at a time in history where people need to know the truth. They need to know who they are, where they come from, the potential that they have physically, mentally, and spiritually, and have the ability to purify their body from all the fucking corporate toxins and just all the filth, like all the preservatives and all these forever chemicals and shit I used to eat McDonald's 3 times a day. you will never see me eat McDonald's ever again. But I used to eat it. Like you live out west, you know, or you don't live out west, but you go out west and there's McDonald's on every
It's
second corner.
fucking yeah. I remember I was trying to prove a point on Instagram myself, and I just screen captured how many were out west, like how many KFC, how many Hungry Jacks. There's not really that many Hungry Jacks out that way, but
Well,
how
there's
many
the
KFC? I
illusion
think
of
it was like
choice.
15 McDonald's in like the radius of like fucking 5Ks,
Yeah,
10Ks, whatever. It's bad. It's wonder why everyone's mentally and physically sick
because it
wearing their
well,
masks.
and this is the thing for me because I physically used to train so hard. I was still able to eat that shit and look good, but you don't realize what it's doing to your
So you're
body.
full vegan, 100%.
100%. I've been
When
vegan
when did you go 100% vegan?
January 2019. So I've been plant based
Do you
since. So
drink? Do you drink alcohol at all?
nah, I've had a few moments. Like I said, after I had the head injury, the same thing happened to me. I felt like I was hungover every day. I was waking up fucked. So the last thing you do when you wake up, or depends if you're a bad alcoholic. If you wake up hungover, you'll probably drink again. But usually, when you wake up really hungover, the last thing you want to do is drink again. So
Oh
I was
yeah, I
just
know.
like people. The last thing I wanted to do was have a beer or drink anything. I was like, that was the worst thing ever. But for me, that was kind of a blessing as well because I realized that the whole culture of alcohol is just all bullshit anyway. It's like every time it's your birthday or every time you're supposed to celebrate, we shouldn't be drinking. You know, if you want to do it every now and then, yeah, you can. But this whole social excuse of, oh, it's a celebration, you have to drink. It's drinking like alcohol is one of the fastest ways to lower your vibration. And after I did my first DMT trip, I was vegetarian at the time, but after I did my first DMT trip, I purged, like I threw up heaps of shit. It was like, I don't even know how to describe what came out of me, but there was a lot of black shit. And
Wow.
I didn't
Off
realize,
DMT.
yeah, from the DMT, I filled up like a whole garbage bag of
Wait,
spew.
when you say DMT, do you mean like a synthetic DMT or DMT, or not ayahuasca DMT, or just
Not
DMT
ayahuasca
itself?
DMT, but DMT in like a powdered form that just mixed into a. I put it with a little bit of weed and just had it in a
Yeah,
bong.
yeah.
And yeah, it fully sent me for like 15 minutes. Had this full out of body experience in another dimension, another realm, the astral world, whatever you want to call it, spiritual world. And then when I came back, I was I wasn't the same person. I just had this entity or this voice that was just keep telling me raise your vibration, and that's just what it kept saying to me. When I was coming back into my body, it was just like raise your vibration. So in the place where you go, it was. You ever looked at like a holographic Pokemon card where everything's like holographic and it's all like shiny and sparkly, and it was like the place where I was, everything was like that.
Mm.
Like for me, when you listen to a lot of people when they're describing heaven, this is the dimension or the realm that you would describe heaven as. It was like another place, but like a holographic realm. Like everything was beautiful, it was magic, and I was like, all right, looking around in another body as another entity, but conscious, and then when you come back, you think to yourself, you're like, all right, well, if that exists and I can be conscious somewhere else in another reality, in another avatar or in another body, I was like, how is this reality then? You know,
Mm.
and that's what really triggered me into like the whole multiverse and the multiple dimensions and certain things. And I just remember coming back to my body and it was like raise your vibration. So as I came to, I was like, all right, raise your vibration. So I started to Google how to raise your vibration. And I was reading about it, and it shows like a lot of the emotions and a lot of the foods. Everything we eat has a vibration. So spiritually, people think, oh yeah, we're supposed to be eating meat. We need protein, but when you realize the actual physical aspect of eating meat, you have to kill another being to take its life force for you to sustain yours. So people have this unconscious belief system that they think, all right, I'm entitled to eat, let's say, 300 animals a year. You know, it depends how many chicken nuggets you eat, how many chicken wings you eat. Like, you think about how many chicken wings you've eaten from KFC. Every time you eat 2 wings, that's a bird. So when you realize that every single living being in the world has a consciousness, like it's alive, it feels. So when we eat food or animals, for example, the modern day farming, it's not how our ancestors lived. They didn't have all these big ag companies pumping these animals full of antibiotics and growth hormones and feeding them genetically modified soybean. We didn't have all this Frankenstein shit. So we're eating these animals that have suffered their whole life, filled full of shit. Those chickens, cows, whatever you want to call it, I don't care how much protein you say is in it, the energy of what you're eating is fucking low. It's the lowest vibration you can eat. Unless you're going out to somebody's farm and hunting your own food that's alive and free and like harvesting your own meat, that is the only way to consciously be connected to your food chain, is to hunt yourself. And this is why I've got a bit of respect for Joe Rogan, even though he's still a big meat eater and stuff. He likes to hunt elk, you know, like he likes to get his own meat. And I feel like a lot of people, if they had to go and hunt and really source their own meat and actually kill their own animals, a lot of people would convert. A lot of people would convert to vegetarian or vegan or instantly. Because
that's what he says. That's what he says he was going to do. He said that he was going to go like plant based or go vegan, but then, started hunting.
It'll happen. You'll see people like me, because I've been very hard, strong, and very dedicated to the causes. It's not just about not eating meat. It's about why, and really educating people on, if you can thrive and be physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy and have a high vibration without it, what's the justification for having it? If you get all these mental problems, you get all these fucking diseases, you get all these fucking skin issues and all this shit.
Yeah, but there's people out there that won't connect their own sickness to their food and their diet, you know, or what they're eating is.
Well, they will, because I used to eat McDonald's 3 times a day. So,
no, but what I mean, like but like your average day person, like your everyday person that is, sore knees from inflammation or heartburn because they're eating. Like, there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't even consider that the reason that their body is stiff or sore or not functioning, or because they're depressed, or because, like, a lot of people would not think that it is food related.
I know that they might not on their own accord, but if they know that they have underlying health issues, you're going to see over the next 3 to 5 years, shamanism and plant medicines and herbal therapies is going to come to the forefront of the medical side. So shamanism, you look at even a lot of the magic mushrooms and certain things have already been legalized in Australia for use. I don't know if anyone's ever been prescribed yet, but there's a lot of countries that are going through that. So the next step after that will be DMT. So if somebody, like for myself, if I can have a life-changing, the reason I did DMT, I was too scared of it, to be honest. Before, I used to party and stuff when I was younger, but I never did psychedelics because I didn't want to lose control. You know, I always wanted to feel like I was in control. I didn't want to have I wasn't open to that type of experience. But then after realizing that that's what I needed, that's when I just went, you know what, fuck it. This is the only way I'm going to heal. I was reading all these studies from the Johns Hopkins University in America, and they were saying cured not ADHD, PTSD and depression, and they were having breakthroughs with people that have had no response to any other treatment, and they were being completely cured from one dose. And I was like, how is this not, well, now it's coming out mainstream, but 2020 when I started to experiment, I was like, why doesn't everybody know about this now? So for me, I kind of had to go on the journey of experimentation for myself. You can read all the books and all the studies you want, but without actually having the experience yourself, it's secondhand information. And that's why I think psychedelics is so important for people to reprogram themselves, because once you have a spiritual experience yourself, nobody can tell you what experience you had. Nobody can try and tell you, oh, you've seen this, you heard that. You had the experience. It's a personal experience. And once people have those experiences, let's say someone that doesn't believe in God, is not spiritual, thinks that they need to eat chicken and beef every day to be strong. Let's say they do DMT once and they realize that they have ego death. They realize that that persona and the ego they created was just to try and make them feel tough and strong in this world, because in the beginning of veganism, a lot of the people were being like, oh, you're pussies, you're weak, you need meat to be strong. And it's just not true. A lot of it's just all programming. And I think the whole reason, when you go back deeper into it, a lot of the most famous scientists and inventors were all plant-based. Mm. And when you talk about connecting your brain and your mind to a higher vibration, so there's a thing called the Akashic Records, or the ether, so everyone knows what Wi-Fi is. So no matter what internet you're with, no matter whether you're Telstra, Optus, Vodafone, everyone's on the same grid, everyone uses the same. So it doesn't matter whether you're Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, we're all connected to the same grid. And this is why, for me, like there's truth in all religions. And this is why I don't even care too much about religion, because there's a little bit of truth in everything. But the fact that people fight each other over different beliefs, when really it's just little parts of the whole thing, it's like there's no one religion that's 100% accurate, but that's by design, because then people will just fight each other. When you look at the divide and conquer, when people are constantly fighting and bickering over each other, nobody fucking knows what's going on because they're too busy fighting each other. It's like what's going on now with, I don't even watch the news or anything anymore, but Gaza has been getting blown up and bombed for a long time. Decades. They've been fucking trying to slowly take over the entire place. It's only now that all the Epstein stuff and everything is coming out and being exposed that now they need another world war to distract, to bring in a one world order government, So they realise that the whole world has woken up to the fact that satanic pedos are running the world, And I say it like that because they're doing child sacrifice, all this adrenochrome shit. It's all real. And people have tried to say that I'm crazy and everyone's crazy. But like I said to you before, it's come to a point in history where people, they don't care if they die in this physical reality, because they're here to make that sacrifice so that they can change the world. So you look at Jesus, whether you believe that story or not, he sacrificed himself, to share the knowledge of the truth.
Yahweh.
Yeah.
Yahweh. Yeshua.
And so when you look back to that, like the Babylonian system, the Roman Empire, like the whole money system has still been the same since then. It's been the same.
Well, that's what we're seeing the fall of now. We're seeing the fall of Babylon.
That's what we're seeing now. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the thing. A lot of people think it's all doom and gloom, and like the fact that I'm still alive and breathing shows that there is a balance in the world. There's a good. People look at the yin and the yang. There's a balance of white and black. So there's a balance of light and dark, and that balance is needed. It's like everybody's personality. You can't be all love and light without having a bit of fucking darkness. Everybody's got it, and when you come to that true balance of yourself, is when you're in harmony of left and right hemispheres of your brain, and that's when you're in your most powerful state, is because you're balanced both. When you start the spiritual journey, you're too loving and you're too nice to people, and they walk all over you, and then you get angry at yourself that you allowed that shit to happen. And then so what happens is that puts you into the dark thinking, where you're like, oh fuck this person, but then you're like, oh, come back, and then it's like learning not to you know, allow things to happen by standing up for yourself as well. It's like you can be nice and loving, but also have boundaries for yourself. And I think that's where it needs to get to. You know, people need to get that balance between both.
Nice.
You like that one?
Good place to wrap it up. End it. It's just landed right here. That's it.
All right, well, that'll be the first episode for you, brother. I'm glad you. How many episodes have you done now with your channel?
Oh, I've done a few, man. Shit. Surprisingly, what made me start? I started my channel in 2020, and then the intention behind it was different to where I ended up, and then obviously COVID come, and then I just ended up just spoke to Sasha Stone, I spoke to Sean Stone, I spoke to a guy I don't know if you heard of him, like SGT Report, and all of these people, like conspiracy sort of people, and I was getting strikes and fucking all of this shit on my channel, and I threatened to, like, I lost all of my strikes, and I was trying to get followers, and couldn't, subscribers, and my YouTube channel doesn't grow because of all of the strikes and shit I've got. And I'm partially like, I should just start another one, because I think the one that I've got is just too targeted, right?
Have you thought about converting over a lot of your stuff to Rumble?
I do have a Rumble, and I do have a BitChute. I've put some videos on BitChute, but it's sort of like I've gone through all these stages where I'm like, no, this is what I'm doing, right? And now I've actually got this plan moving forward. Last year in 2023, sort of took almost 2022 off from making a video. 2022 is when I done my breath work, done 9-month facilitator training to be trauma informed breathwork facilitator, to be able to hold space for people through guided journeys, and through that was just his personal development, all this shit that I went through.
But that's an important aspect of your journey too, is because by you taking a step back to elevate yourself, then you've got more value to offer when you start more episodes. It's like, for me, I had to go through everything I went through so that I had more value to be able to share. It's like,
it's not just that as well. Like, I've come from 5 years sober as well, where that within itself, and healing, doing a trauma informed, and I've been through so many guided sessions where I've I know about ancestral trauma. I know that the reason I stopped drinking was because it stopped with me, that I was just a continuation of my family and all of that ancestral line and stuff, in terms of like going deep and really going back ancestral, but tapping in all of that, and then not drinking, like, what I want to offer is that of change, and speaking to people that can promote some form of change, or that people who inspire or try and inspire others. I've got my ultra running that I do. I've got all of these things which I'm trying to, now I'm going to try and mold all of this stuff and shape it into my channel, and build it and grow it with sort of like this sort of like using myself and my life and how I've changed it as a way, like, we can all do it, and stuff. So, having these chats and speaking to people, but then also to incorporating other stuff for it to grow, is sort of like, my plan and my intention. But yeah, man, well, it's hard to have the channel grow when you're like, you've been targeted fucking 2-3 years ago. So,
but this is the thing, like I learned with my Instagram, I've been deleted probably about 4 or 5 times, because every time I tried to make a new one, there's certain topics and certain things that you get banned straight away. So you got to learn to like tiptoe around those certain topics for right now. But when you realize the gravity of what's happening right now with all the Epstein releases and things like that, it's like, it's going to get to a point where all the shit that was censored and shadow banned, it won't be anymore. So platforms and pages like yours that have copped it like I did over the last few years, You'll wake up one day and your algorithm will be booming. You'll have thousands of people that will be watching and seeing your stuff because that censorship's not going to be around forever.
Yeah, well, let's hope. Let's hope Trump 2024, boom, it's all over.
Yeah, this is the thing. He's one man, but there's a lot of people behind him that support him, and that's the thing. A lot of people focus too much on the dark aspects of the world and all the negative entities, but there's a lot of angelic beings among us, and there's a lot of good, honest people that are shifting the world. And I'm just been happy to have put my hand up and to play a small role in doing what I could to share what information I could. I've had a lot of people come up to me and thank me for opening their eyes and stopping them from getting vaccinated and things like that. I've literally had hundreds of people messaging me saying they didn't get the jab because of the information that I shared. So for me, that wasn't me making a decision for them. That was me sharing information that I believed everyone should be able to see. The mainstream media wasn't showing it. They were all fucking bought and paid for by Pfizer. So
man, I'm waiting for all of them to go on trial, man, because fuck, like you see Dan Andrews step down and resign, Queensland Premier step down and resign. They're out of politics.
None of the premiers from COVID are in existence anymore. Anastasia Palaszczuk is the Queensland one. She's just recently gone. So she was the last one to go. So it's going to be I won't even use the word interesting because interesting has a very mixed connotation on how you can interpret the word, but it's going to be very exciting 2024. We'll just leave it at that. So
can't wait.